Hi, my name is John Bierbauer, and for my research topic, I chose the effects of the Fair Pay to Play Act on student athletes at the NCAA Division III level, specifically from Alma College and Hope College. So, we're going to start this off with a quote today. My quote comes from Wendell Carter Jr., and he played for Duke University. He graduated 2 years ago, and now he's the center for Chicago Bulls. He went through the whole process of being part of the NCAA and with student athletes. So, his quote is, "The problem that I see is not with the student athlete, coaches, or the institutions, but it's with the system. And it's where the laborers are the only people that aren't being compensated for the work they do, while those in charge receive heavy compensation." And he's referring to Mark Emmert, who is the president of the NCAA, who has $1 million salary, while him, one of the players, got nothing. And he was at Duke for a year, and he graduated from Duke. He did finish with an online degree, and he's now does have the degree, but he's also one of the better younger centers in the NBA. So then I came to my research question, which is, should college athletes be able to receive financial compensation for their abilities to draw massive amounts of revenue towards the NCAA? And to start with this, I went back and I went to the NCAA rulebook actually, and went to find definitions. And the definitions I found were for a student athlete, which is my first one, and then amateurism, which is the second. The first one, though, is a student athlete is a student whose enrollment was solicited by a member of the athletic staff or other representative of athletics interests with a view towards the student's ultimate participation in the intercollegiate athletics program. And that's from page 62. Over to the next page is amateurism. Violations of amateur status are athletes can be stripped of their amateur status and their right to participate in any sports if they receive payment for their athletic skills, which that is now going to be changing in 2022 with the Fair Pay to Play Act, which is the new legislation that allows student athletes to make some compensation, not a straight up salary, but say someone wanted to use them in a commercial. You can pay the athlete, and the athlete makes a little bit of cash to use on the side, because right now they're getting zip. We're going to start with my literature review. I used a few player case studies, starting with Donald DeLaHaye. DeLaHaye used to be the kicker for UCF, and he also used to make YouTube videos to help his struggling family, because his mom had 4 kids at home. He was in college, he was on the full ride because he had a boot and he was kicking field goals, and he's a kickoff specialist. But the NCAA came along and said, hey, your vlogs that you're making are violations of NCAA amateurism because you're making money off of it. And he said, well, no, I'm not, because I'm giving the money to my family. I'm not keeping any of this. It's for my mom, who has 2 jobs, and she's still trying to make my family run afloat, and she needed a little help. And the NCAA took him to court and said, you can play football and have a scholarship and go to college, or you can make videos. And then he ended up making videos instead. So he's still making videos. He's made enough money off of his videos now that he's back re-rolled at UCF. He's a senior this year. And he's going to graduate, and hopefully he wants to go to NFL or CFL, Canadian Football League, and be a kicker. And if you have time, check out his videos. But this is from one of his videos. It was called Play College Sports or Make Videos. And he referred to him as the NCAA monsters were forcing him to make a decision, the hardest decision of his life. And he ended up making it and making YouTube videos. Another thing that would be affected is amateurism in college golf. I'm sure everyone here has heard of the Masters tournament before. And in the tournament, they bring in 3 amateurs from college level for a chance to get in at the PGA Tour. It's basically the 3 best college players. They have a little playoff thing. Throw them into, which isn't going to happen this year now because of all this coronavirus. Masters is postponed, so is NCAA golf season is postponed. So I could really throw that off already. But considered amateurism is not getting paid. So these guys are just random people. They have 3 out of college. Sometimes they're people like me that are just work a regular job or are regular students. There's a kid at PH, Nick Bailey, tried to get on the PGA Tour a while ago. He didn't. He played the worst round of golf in his life. But still, the amateurism gets rid of amateurism in golf. That means those 3 kids are going to have a harder time getting into the spotlight because, that's how Tiger Woods started out. He was at Stanford, and he ended up being a good golfer at Stanford, and he made it to the Masters, and he showed up, and they realized, hey, this kid has potential. Made it onto the tour, and then the rest is history from there. This is the biggest one, I think, is the EA Sports lawsuit. It started with Ed O'Bannon. He was on the 96 UCLA basketball team. And in the NCAA video games, I don't know if you've ever played one before, but there was college football and college basketball. And there was all-time teams. So Ed O'Bannon went out. He was a really good player, too. He was player of the year when he was at UCLA. And he went out, and he's playing the game with this kid. And he's like, I'm going to play with the 96 UCLA team because that's me. I was on that team. And then he started playing. And then there's a guy who was 6'11", and he was 6'11", and he was bald, and O'Bannon was bald, and he was the same height and weight, and it's just, he realized, hey, that's me. It might not have my name, but that's me. And from there on, he took it to court, and he's like, hey, you didn't ask me to use my likeness in the game, and I didn't get any money for it. So what ended up happening was they had to scrap the games. EA Sports didn't have enough money to pay the NCAA for every single individual player's likeness, nor could they, because that would lose their amateurism status, and then they wouldn't be allowed to play the sports, and then you wouldn't have the games. So that they were both gone. So it was NCAA basketball. That shut down in 2010 with this lawsuit, and they made football till 2013 with NCAA 14, and then that was the end of that game. They could come back now. They would have to figure out what they're going to pay like the athletes, and then their names would actually be included in the game because this new law allows for them to do that, whether it would be $1,000 for a player or $243, because that's what Channing Crowder got. Channing Crowder was part of the Florida team that won the championship with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow. They actually won 2, I think, and then he was later included in the all-time game, and he got his EA Sports settlement check after Ed O'Bannon's whole thing, and then his check was for $243, so he made $243 after he was in the game. Not that it would have really benefited him that much in college, but it still could have given him an extra meal or something that he would have needed. Because, going into this, Arian Foster was a standout running back at Tennessee, later went on to play for the Texans and then the Dolphins, where he retired from the Dolphins later, early in his career. And Arian Foster one day, it was after practice. They missed the mealtime at school. They had no money because they couldn't make money. They couldn't have a job on campus because the football game and football team practices were just too much for him. So his coach came along, and he just bought a bunch of tacos. I went to Taco Bell, got him tacos and food for his teammates and him because they were hungry. They didn't have any money for food. And the coach came along and helped. Later, the coach got in trouble, got fired, just because of buying his team tacos. But then you look over at, his point was, you look over at the NCAA officials, and they're just sitting there in their nice, fancy Lamborghinis and Porsches and just making all this money off of him. He's the guy that's bringing in revenue. He's a great running back. And the same thing with Des Bryant. Des Bryant had to sit out a full year in college because when he was at Oklahoma State, Barry Sanders, who you know because he was a Lion, and he was also the best Oklahoma State player ever, took him out to lunch. He just, hey, this is how it's going to be. You're on my team. You're representing my team. And now, so I just want to lay down a little bit with you. Maybe help you out, benefit you in whatever way you need. And so they found out about that. Barry Sanders got in trouble. Des Bryant couldn't play football for a year. But then he ended up having one of the best Dallas Cowboys careers. And he did take the Lions out of their only playoff win they should have had in the last couple of years. Another example is more recent. This is James Wiseman, who this year played for Penny Hardaway at Memphis. And he used to live in Washington, D.C. And Penny Hardaway's like, hey, you should come to Memphis and I'll help you out. Because his family didn't have very much money. So he moved to Memphis, and they needed a house, and Penny Hardaway brought that house for him, even though he was still in high school. So you don't think this would be a problem, but it was because Penny Hardaway was financially supporting James Wiseman and his family in high school, and he kept doing it into college, because Penny Hardaway was his high school coach and his college coach, because Penny Hardaway just got hired at Memphis, and Wiseman showed up there because he kind of didn't have a choice because Penny Hardaway's paying for his family to live. And he got suspended for the rest of the year from then NCAA. Didn't really matter. He's going to the draft next year anyway. He's 7 feet tall. He's going to be a great NBA player. He's dominant. He's strong. He's a good scorer inside the paint. But not that it mattered anyway, because the season's over for them, and he didn't get a chance to show Memphis in the tournament, which they were a bubble team, so they could have been in the tournament this year. Another example is Chase Young, Ohio State D-end, another great, great player. But 2 years ago, when Ohio State was in the Rose Bowl, you got 2 tickets to fly your families out, and he didn't have money for his girlfriend, so he took out a loan from just a booster at Ohio State. Said he was his friend, and when he did that, that's a violation of NCAA rules because he took out money from not a direct family member, and he had to sit out. He had a 2-game suspension for it, which is really unfortunate for him because he's such a good player this year. He was on record for the NCAA sack mark, and then once he came back, people realized how to block him, and not that it did anything. He's still going to get picked 2nd or 3rd, hopefully to the Lions this year. Go Lions. And he had a great season at Ohio State, but he's still dog. It was 2 years ago, and it's still coming back to bite him in the butt. Another example, Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama quarterback. Great quarterback. He's going to be 2nd or 3rd pick, whatever team Young doesn't go to, gets Tua, maybe the Lions again. And in the last 2 years, he's had 2 severely damaging ankle rolls. And because of that, he put 2 metal pins in his ankle to just basically make him a robot that he can't hold his ankles or roll his ankles, and it keeps him safe. But if he didn't do this and his season was potentially over, the Fair Pay to Play Act, which is the new legislation allowing them to get their money, will just it would give him like financial security that he doesn't have to go to the draft and risk hurting himself or keep playing and risk hurting himself, because he can make a little bit of money, and he would have okay, and it'd be okay for him. And also, not that it mattered anymore, but he also hurt his hip. When he rolled his ankle, he fell on his hip, damaged his hip, and he's really injury prone. And with a little bit of financial stability in there, it could really help him in the long run. Another one, you might remember Caitlin Ohashi from her just stunning floor routine 2 years ago again. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. And this is how the Fair Pay to Play Act would benefit her. With her just like amazing routine, girls all over the country and some guys would be like, hey, I want to go and learn how to be a gymnast like her. She could go back to Washington, where she's from, and she could run her own Ohashi's gymnastics camp. And it would teach kids how to be overall a good gymnast, and she'd make money off of it. And then she'd have a little bit of money, and she could pay for her college, she could pay for her future, she could pay for her training for USA Gymnastics, wherever she wants to go in the future with this. Please pardon me for a second, my dog needs to come inside. I'm going to let her in, and then I'm going to keep going. Thank you. Another example is Trey Johnson, Villanova cornerback. This one's a little different example, and this kind of went back to my research with the questionnaire I sent out to the MIAA athletes from Hope and Alma. Trey Johnson, Villanova cornerback, has his idea of it is because he wasn't allowed to get a work study job because football practices were too intense. So what Trey Johnson did was he went to the NCAA, and now he's suing him and saying the NCAA athletes should be paid his work study, make $1,500 a year, just that's their straight up salaries they get, because they don't have a chance like other people on campus to be on work study. And that was one of the questions I asked. I'll get to that later with my results, and I think personally that's a really good example. To my research gap, this filled the gap in the current research. It gave a D3 athlete's perspective, which is commonly overlooked because all anyone ever cares about what does Coach Harbaugh at Michigan think? What does Urban Meyer think? What does Ryan Day think at Ohio State? Nick Saban, we need to know what he thinks. And no one ever thinks about the D3 athletes. And that's my mentor, Coach Couch at Alma. He said that personally. He hopes that this doesn't go down to D3 because it really takes some of the competitiveness out of the game. My methodology, I use mixed methods to collect data. It was chosen because it's the easiest way to reach student athletes for their opinion, because I don't really want to drive to Holland, Michigan, or to Alma, Michigan, because that's 3 hours and 2.5 hours away. And when I can just email these kids, and I can email their coaches and get something out of them instead, that way it's much easier. And so now into my results. So my college was pretty split. I got 20 from Alma and 19 from Hope College. That's really good to have a nice split. Three colleges replied back: Alma, Hope, and Adrian. Adrian said they wouldn't participate in this because they're not allowed to. Hope said, yeah, we have some athletes in the student athlete council that would love to do this. And then Alma, my brother's on the football team, my mentor is Coach Couch, so it really worked good that way. The rest of the schools, Finlandia, Kalamazoo, all of that, Adrian, Albion, and Trine, nothing. They just didn't want to be part of it, which I guess I'm okay with that. The year of schooling, there's 12 freshmen, 11 sophomores, 11 juniors, and 4 seniors that took this. It's good, nice wide spread, minus the 4 seniors, but still, I'm getting everyone's perspective. That some people have been around for 2, 3, 4 years, some of them have had this is their first year. So my next question was, do you have a job on campus? 20 people said yes, 19 people said no, which is a 50-50 split again almost, which that was a good thing about having 39 answers, was that I wasn't going to get a 50-50 split, so we can push it either one way or the other. So we're going to say majority do have jobs on campus, and majority said practice times interfere with getting your job opportunities, whether you have to work late at night or during the day, or what that job is. It varies with each student. 21 said that their sports practices say, hey, we're priority, you can't get this job that you need to pay for college. 18 of them said, no, I could get it if I wanted to, but I'm just lazy. Student athletes should receive compensation. Now going back to the Fair Pay to Play Act, do you agree with this? 31 said yes, 8 said no. Mostly through with what sports they played. It's safe to assume that most of them that said yes were guys, and most of them said no were girls. Next question was, will this make it to the MIAA levels, which is Division III, Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association, with those colleges that I mentioned earlier, where 35 of them said yes, it will make it there, and 4 of them said no. And overall, I think this is a really good part that people just don't sit here and think about, is that it's not just, one could be straight up getting paid. 2 could be like the video game perspective where people could pay for your likeness. But then there's like the other ones. You're in a small town like Alma, you're putting a car commercial out for Big Jim's car dealership. You want to get an Alma football player, you want to get a Hope football player, you want to get an Albion football player, I don't care, wherever city you're from. People are going to reflect on that, because what else are you going to do on Saturdays? You're a small town, and what do? You go out and watch the football team play, because you got nothing else to do. You go and support the hometown team. And I think people would see that and be like, oh, I like Alma, I support Alma, let's go to Big Jim's car dealership. And then this is the next one, is should student athletes be paid as work study? That's like the Trey Johnson thing I talked about earlier. 18 said yes, 21 said no. You can get up to $1,500 a year from work study, and that would be like paying them $1,500 as a salary, not with them making money off their likeness. And then I asked for a testimonial from people. I got about 8 of them that were pretty decent. Here's the best 2, I think, is this one's from Hope College, a baseball player. He said, being a non-scholarship athlete has helped me appreciate the game of baseball more. It reminds me that my spot on the team is not a right, but rather a privilege. It also allows me to branch out and join clubs like Formula SAE or intramural sports like co-ed basketball. And being a non-scholarship athlete allows me to be a well-rounded student. And then, Alma College football player, we have, it's helped me in time management. I found purposes outside of academics, and have another support group on campus, and have grown in leadership skills. It's been infinitely valuable to my college experience. And I think that it's cool because a lot of D1 scholarship athletes, really, what do? They have to focus on football. I mean, you see it often. Joe Burrow just won national championship with LSU. He had 1 class, and it was an online class because he had so much focus on football. And he was a 5th-year senior, so he was really just getting done with it. But still, 1 class when you're at college paying, well, they're paying, technically, because you're a scholarship athlete, but 1 class. And these guys have the full college experience that you don't get if you're a D1 athlete focusing on your sport. So overall analysis, this benefits anybody that's interested in NCAA Division III athletes' opinion on a law that was specifically made for D1 athletes, but eventually it could work its way down to a D3 level. Limitations of this is that it was a small sample size of 39. I wish I could have got bigger, but schools don't respond. I can't do anything about that. because they are 4 or 5 hours away. It's hard to drive there and like, knock on someone's door and try to get something out of them. But I did get 30, which is the proper sample size, and over 30 for your sample size, and it's considered proper that way. So I still got enough people, so I can call these accurate conclusions. Implications. The implications of the study extend to anyone who's interested in learning a little more about the Fair Pay to Play Act and how it doesn't only affect the top tier of Division I student athletes, but it can go to affect the Division II and the Division III levels over time, just not instantly. This law doesn't come into effect until 2022. In conclusion, the study aimed to understand the lower level of NCAA Division III athletes' perspectives on the Fair Pay to Play Act, which is a new legislation enacted that results in student athletes receiving financial compensation for their athletic abilities. This is one of my reference pages, second one, third one, and thank you.